Welcome to Psalm 139. The Lord knows His creation, which we are. It begins, I'll read a few verses in the Greek, and then we'll go into the Psalm. Is to telos, to David Psalmos, Kyrie edokim asas me, ke egnos me, si egnos tin cathedron mu, ke tin egersin mu, si synicus tus dialogismus mu apo macrothen. To the director, a psalm to David. O Lord, you tried me and knew me. Dokimazo, to try, is number 1381. Now, we don't want to get this word confused with pirazo, which is to test. The two are different, and sometimes are mentioned together, though, in the Bible. But dokimazo is used in the Bible to try, or to distinguish, or prove, or to approve something. And the Lord has done these things and others. And we see distinguish would be the first one. You distinguish me and knew me. Distinguish is in Luke 12:56. Distinguishing, Jesus says, to distinguish the signs of in the heaven. But you can't distinguish the times of Jesus, he's basically saying. And then distinguishing the differences in the law, Romans 2:18, and to distinguish what is pleasing to the Lord. It's good to know, Ephesians 5:10. And then in 1 John 4:1, it says, Beloved, believe not every spirit, but distinguish the spirits if they are of God. So that is one word that's used, distinguish, for this dokimazo, to try. Next one would be try. In Luke 14:19, it talks about these men given an excuse to go to the wedding feast of wanting to try the team of oxen, try something out. And then in Romans 1:28, it says well, basically it didn't say, but they tried, he says, not to hold God in full knowledge. This was by Paul. And then in Romans 12:2, it says, but be transformed in the renewal of your mind, in the trying of yourselves in what is the good and well-pleasing and perfect will of God. You have to sit there and think, what does God want me to do here? It's not just doing something with a knee-jerk reaction. We are now Christians, and we have to think of what God wants us to do. We're given free will to do it, of course. And then in 2 Corinthians 13:5 and Galatians 6:4, it's all about, again, trying yourselves. The next one is to prove. And so here it says, O Lord, you proved me and knew me. To prove, it says in 1 Corinthians 3:13, the fire will prove the works. If they get burnt up, then they're no good. And 1 Corinthians 11:28, let a man prove himself that you are true. And then 2 Corinthians 8:8, very similar, proving genuineness. And then God proves in 1 Thessalonians 2:4, it mentions. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says, prove all things and hold to the good. Verify all things, prove all things. Some famous Air Force base has its motto, in God we trust, but all others we verify. Prove. And then a proving of the belief is mentioned in 1 Peter 1:7. And then to approve, that is the positive twist to it, but it doesn't always have to be that way. It depends on the context, because here in verse 1, it would say, O Lord, you approved me and knew me. Well, you could, I suppose, but in 1 Corinthians 16:3, it is whomever you should approve, which is important. And 2 Corinthians 8:22, brother, who was approved that by the brethren, and then proving the things that are differing. If there is something in the church and people are saying different things, to approve the thing that is the best, closest thing to what God would want. And that's in Philippians 1:10. And then people are approved as the deacons in 1 Timothy 3:10. And going back up to verse 2, you knew my sitting down and my rising up. You perceive my thoughts from far off. So God knows everything that we do. And from our getting up and our going to bed, everything that we do, God sees and knows. And that should give us thought for reason for looking at what we're doing is do we want God to see us doing these things that aren't right? Well, of course not, but we still do them, don't we? My path, that is the way we're going through life, and my bent rush grass you traced. Now, it's like if you go through have high grass, then it bends over and falls on the ground, and God looks in what we've done as we have gone through these times. He looks and sees what we have knocked down, if it's good or if it's bad. He's able to go trace our steps, everything that we do. In all my ways, you looked out ahead. So he even sees what's on the road ahead. The odus, an odometer is a derivative, has to do with traveling. For there is not a deceit in my tongue. Behold, O Lord, you knew all things. In Matthew 12:25, it says, but Jesus, knowing their thinking, said to them, so Jesus knows all things. O Lord, Jesus is the Lord. And then in John 2:24, it says, but Jesus himself did not entrust himself to them on account of his knowing all, and that he had not a need that any should witness concerning another man, for he knew what was in man. But Jesus is God, and he knows us. And John 6:64, it says, for Jesus knew from the beginning who are the ones not believing and who it is that shall be delivering him up. He knew that Judas Iscariot would be delivering him up. In verse 5, the last and the former, he knows. You shaped me and put your hand upon me. In Romans 9:20, it says, certainly, O man, who are you answering to God? Shall the thing shaped say to the one shaping, why have you made me thus? And I look at people and they'll question the things of God, and it reminds me of this. Who are we to ask God why he does something? It's sort of almost hilarious that we would think that we would try to understand the mind of God. He has shaped us, and we are the creation, not the creator. Verse 6, the knowledge of you causes wonder from out of me. It was strengthened. In no way should I be able to attain it. And it says in, I didn't write the place down, but it's in the Gospels, but fearing, I'll put it in the note down here in the quotation box. But fearing, they wondered, saying to one another, who then is this that even the winds he gives orders, and to the water, and they obey him? The knowledge of you causes wonder from out of me. And the disciples wondered when they saw him calm the storm in the sea. Verse 7, where should I go from your pneumatos, spirit, pneumatics, air, the power of the spirit? And now, it's interesting here because it's talking about your spirit, but it's not the agios, pneuma, of something that comes into us. It's the Spirit of God, and mentions that at the very beginning. a Spirit of God hovers over the abyss. And where should I go from your Spirit? So the agios pneuma that comes into us is something that's different, that is for us particularly that affects our lives in a more personal way than the general Spirit of God, which affects everything. And from your presence, where should I flee? Want to get away from God? Well, good luck. It says, if I should ascend into the heaven, you are there. You go out in outer space, take a rocket ship, want to get away from God. Reminds me of Jonah the prophet, who hated the people in Nineveh, and God told him to go there to tell them that their days are numbered, and he didn't want to go there. He didn't like the Ninevites. So he's heading out to go as far away from Nineveh as he possibly could, probably into the Mediterranean. So God was there, stopped him. If I should go down into Hades, you are at hand. Now, Hades is a place of the abode of the shades, they're called in Greek mythology. And it's a dark place, exactly what it is, someplace on the negative side. We don't want to be there, yet it does exist. Jesus warns us of that place, not wanting to not to go there. Now, Hades sort of was a place in the Old Testament for a place called Sheol in the Hebrew, the place of the dead. But yet, with God, Jesus went down into Hades and led the people out, the believers, I would imagine. And then in verse 9, if I may take up my wings at dawn, in the patrigas, we have patri, helicopter, it comes from that word. If you took up a helicopter at dawn and should encamp unto the ends of the sea, for even there your hand shall guide me. And God takes a hold of us no matter where we are in this world, this earth. And your right hand shall hold me. That's the stronger. If you're right-handed, that's basically what it's referring to. Then that's the one that really grips it tight. If you're left-handed, well, then just change this. I don't know. God must have been right-handed. You think so? I'm not sure about that. But dexia, we have ambidextrous, because the dexterous comes from that. You're both-handed, ambidextrous. And I said, well, surely darkness shall trample me. Even night was an illumination in my luxury. But it says, for darkness will not be made darkness from you, and night as day shall be given light. And as her darkness, so also her light. God's darkness and the light, it comes from God. God controls all of these elements of the light coming and the darkness not having light. For you acquired of my kidneys, you took hold of me from out of the womb of my mother. It says in Revelations 2:23, I am the one searching the kidneys and hearts. And we think of, well, the kidney is kind of a strange word, but they used in those days different parts of the bodies for different emotions and so forth, thoughts, not so much the brain. I can't remember any word in the Bible that has the word for brain. But kidneys, we have even used it sort of today. I have my gut feelings. It's something in your gut that you feel good about or bad about. And I love you with my heart. Well, the heart doesn't love, it's a muscle, but yet we use these figures of speech just as here. For you acquired of my kidneys something inside of me, who I am, and you took hold of me from out of the womb of my mother. Gastros, gastric, comes from that. I shall make acknowledgment to you, for fearfully you caused wonder, the wonders of your works, and that my soul knows exceedingly. In the phoveros, we have the phobia, fearful. So you can add that one to your English derivatives book. It's not in there. phoveros, in the adverb with the omega sigma ending. The adverbs generally have an ly. Fearfully you caused wonder, the wonders of your works. And in Matthew 21:15 it says, and the chief priests and the scribes, beholding the wonders which he did. My bones were not hidden from you, which you made in secret. Cryptic comes from that. And my essence in the lowermost parts of the earth. Now, here's an interesting thing. I had a man write me a while back, and not too long ago, was asking me about this word essence that I used. And so I said, well, I'll study it and see what I can help bring out what that means. And basically, it led to a long study this morning. And I found out that essence, I think I'm going to take it out. And the words that I had for number 5287 were, if you looked in the lexical concordance, it's support and essence and the reality. And I'm going to change everything to support because it's way better word. In essence, you question, well, what does that mean? But the support, in 1 Samuel 13:21, it talks about the support camp of the Philistines. It's used many places. You can look it up in our app, number 5287. So changing that then to essence, and it changes Hebrews 11:1, it says, now belief is the support of hoping of things, the proof not being seen. So the belief supports hope. I think that's way better than essence. So I hope I answered the question for this man who wrote me a little bit back. So which you made in secret, in my support in the lowermost parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my unfinished state, and it mentions how God relates finding a baby that had been aborted, and then he caused it to live and cleaned it up and everything, the unfinished state. And on your scroll, all shall be written. Now, all on your scroll, well, what is his scroll? The number 975. The scrolls of God and their scrolls of other people. The scrolls of God was a memorial scroll in Exodus 17:14, and then in Exodus 24:7, a scroll of the covenant. And then in Deuteronomy 31:24, a scroll of the law, which is mentioned many places. And I didn't bring the scroll up. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. I was going to unroll as a piece of papyrus that I have that was written on papyrus. The scroll of the Lord was mentioned in 2 Kings 23, and the same thing in 2 Chronicles 34 about Hilkiah the scribe finding a scroll of the law in the temple as they were cleaning it out and bringing it to King Josiah. A scroll was given to Isaiah in Isaiah 29, and then Isaiah is told to write a scroll in chapter 30. And God gives a scroll to Jeremiah, same as Isaiah in Jeremiah 25:13. And then again, Jeremiah is to write on a scroll, this one to be sealed, and that's in Jeremiah 30:2. It mentions a papyrus scroll, which I didn't bring up, I'm sorry, in Jeremiah 36:2. And then Jeremiah's scroll is mentioned in Jeremiah 51, which was God had him write against Babylon. Then Ezekiel scroll was mentioned in Ezekiel 2:9. Daniel is to write a scroll, Daniel 12:4. Nahum to write a scroll in Nahum 1:1. Then in the New Testament, it says that Jesus read Isaiah's scroll. He opened the scroll up. And Luke 4:17-20 talks about that. Then John's scroll is mentioned in the book of John. He mentions a scroll that would be what he was writing in the book of John. Paul calls for scrolls, his scrolls of Scripture probably, and that's in 2 Timothy 4:13. In Revelation, it says, is the scroll of John the bondman in Revelation 1:11, not the same John as the gospel, I don't believe. The seven seals were a scroll with the seven seals were mentioned in Revelation 5:1-9. Then the scrolls of the works in Revelation 20:12. This is interesting because if you go into Revelation 20:12, you'll see two different types of scrolls. Then the scroll of the life of the Lamb is mentioned earlier in Revelation 13:8, 17:8, and then later in 21:27. But in 20:12, we have the scrolls, plural, and the scroll of the life of the Lamb. And then it mentions the scroll of the works having to do with the judgment. It's not the same as the scroll of the life of the Lamb. And then the writer of Revelation mentions it being in a scroll, and that's in Revelation 22:7, 9, 10, 18, and 19. So these are all the scrolls that were written. Scrolls were written about other things, scrolls of the kingship, scrolls of war, scrolls of divorce, scrolls of the upright, scrolls of the sayings of Solomon, scrolls of the words of the kings of Israel and Judah, just basically people writing things on papyrus. A book didn't come into place until later, maybe at the time, the parchments at the time of Paul. Earlier it was written on either animal skin or papyrus, which was a plant that grew in the Nile that they beat and wove it together and made it into paper, a paper type of a product. Now up to 17, it says, but your friends exceedingly were esteemed by me. I would imagine he's talking about other people. It would be like for us Christians, other Christians, esteemed, O God. Their beginnings were exceedingly strengthened. The people that we know that have known God for their whole lives. I have one friend that I've known since on kindergarten. We met Jesus probably at the same time. We were around 4 years old in Sunday school. Sat next to each other. He lived up the street, Tom. And they're esteemed. He's esteemed to me. I still write him. You probably have a friend too, maybe, hopefully, that you've known that has loved the Lord all their life. 18, I shall count them out, and above the sand they shall be multiplied. Hopefully more people that be known God. I awake, and still I am with you. Oh, that you should kill the sinners. Oh, God, turn aside men of blood from me. Well, now sort of in the New Testament, Jesus changes this into love. But in those days, it wasn't quite the same. They were being attacked constantly, and the sinner and so forth was somebody that was to be feared and not to be loved. For you will say concerning their thoughts that they shall take your cities in folly. See, they're going to attack, and this is who he's against, not necessarily a person. Is it not the ones detesting you, O Lord, that I detested? And against your enemies I wasted them. In perfect hatred I detested them. They became as enemies to me. Boy, try me, O God, and know my heart. If it's, right towards him, examine me and know my paths. And see if the way of lawlessness is in me. If it is, guide me in the way or the eternal way or the way aeonia, eternal or aeonial way. Psalm 140, a prayer in time of trouble. And we all have trouble, and there's a lot of troubles in the world today. So what kind of prayer is the psalmist going to tell us about? Have to wait and find out from we get into the next video, Psalm 140. I hope you do. Till then, God bless.